Welcome back to the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast, episode 50. That's kind of a milestone. Today I'm bringing on a good friend of mine. I know I say this a lot, but I have a lot of real friends in internet land that I've met at various conferences or in small groups that are truly friends. And one is my friend Deb from Seeking Lavender Lane. She is a very talented blogger and designer. I love what she's done with her current home and her previous home. Actually, this episode is in response to an email that I received. So I'm going to read the email, at least parts of it, so you can understand what Deb and I are going to talk about. Hello, Lisa. I love your content on the internet. I get to listen to one of your podcasts every 2 weeks on my trek home from getting raw milk. The last two that I've been able to listen to were on decorating on a budget and with the theme of your home. I don't live in an old farmhouse or Victorian home or colonial cottage. I live in a small home built in 1999. We're finishing up painting the walls, doors, and trim, and some other minor projects, but for now, that is all the remodeling we have chosen to do. So our floor is a combination between ugly linoleum in the kitchen and laminate wood in the rest of the house. The kitchen cabinets are old orangey oak, plus a lot of other not pretty features. I'd love to hear ideas on how to create character in a home like this and make it beautiful with what I have to work with. She goes on to explain a few more things that she has in her home. And the basic idea is that adding character to just a builder grade, cookie cutter home, because a large majority of you probably live in a home like that, and it is totally possible. Actually, the reason I thought to invite Deb on is because she's just the first person that popped into my brain whenever this person asked me this question, because she has done this so well. Both the homes that she's lived in and shared on Instagram were not these Victorian farmhouse homes, but they look amazing. And she has some really great ideas, because you don't have to have a high budget and you don't have to have an old house to have a beautiful, comfortable, character-filled home. I shared a little bit about this in the interview with Deb, but I remember when we first got married, all the hand-me-down furniture we had, I think I had spent a total of $100 on like all of it. So there was a couple chairs and a couch, and I just recovered it. I recovered it with drop cloth. I worked with what I had, and actually, interestingly, a lot of that was actually featured in a magazine. So I had a magazine come out and shoot my living room. And whenever I looked at it, I was like, that's hilarious. Those were my $80 Craigslist couch and love seat set covered in drop cloth that just made it into a Better Homes and Gardens publication. So it does not have to be expensive. Another thing, then I'll get into the interview. I get chatty sometimes. We went and visited a friend, actually, Sarah Jo from episode 40 from Briarton Farm. We actually had the opportunity last weekend to go visit them, and she truly has done, like, she took me around her house, showed me every little thing. She has made the entire place so beautiful and magazine worthy as well, because she's had magazines out there, and nothing cost her a lot of money. Like, she didn't spend a lot of money on furniture, remodels, nothing. Now, she does live in an old farmhouse, but still, they had to completely redo the whole thing. So it's totally possible. And without further ado, I'm going to bring on Deb, author of the blog Seeking Lavender Lane. She has beautiful print collection, which she talks about later, which I did not know about. And I'm excited to download and print some of those for art. Let's dive in. My name is Lisa, mom of 6 and creator of the blog and YouTube channel Farmhouse on Boone. Join me as I share with you my love for creating a handmade home from scratch cooking and a little mom and entrepreneur life along the way.
Hey.
Hey, Lisa.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So, yay. Well, thanks for coming on with me.
Yeah, of course.
Somebody sent me this message, and you were the first person that popped into my brain.
Oh, thank you. I so appreciate that. Yeah, like I got your message, and I was just kind of like, wow. I'm like, it's just so funny. Like, there's so many people that do this, and I was just really, grateful that you thought of me. So
yeah, well, your last house was a cookie cutter house that you made with, like, you made it have character, as far as I remember. Now, your new house,
right.
I know you did like extensive renovating on,
right?
But your last house, you felt like you added a lot of character without having to basically spend like $100,000.
Right, exactly. I feel like I kind of had like the best of both worlds. Like, I learned from like my first house how to like just change everything with paint, basically, and then this house, you know, we really got to do the structure and all of that. And the difference is the other house was like a cookie cutter 1980s home, where this one's like a kind of custom, but it's all new. So I'm still trying to add character into this house. So it's kind of like, you know, adding character to two different types of homes, one that was cookie cutter and one that's basically like a new build and just needs all of that.
Now your house that you have now, it is mostly new build, but you did build around something, correct?
Yeah. So there was an original structure. So the house originally was 1,200 square feet, and we made it 2,700 square feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's more than half brand new.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's cool. Like the front, whenever you look at it, the before and after, I don't even know how you guys thought of that.
I have no idea. I just kept looking at all homes that I liked, and I was trying to incorporate all the things that I liked into this house, and somehow it came together. And you know, it was a lot of vision that was forced.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you did a really good job.
Oh,
like I don't know, I think I could never build because I'm afraid of, like, I'm always doing things and then I'm undoing them and doing something different because I have to like struggle through the whole process.
Right.
Like I never have this grand vision beforehand. I sometimes think I do, but then I have to like do a million things before I get to that point. And so I feel like if I had to build, I would totally mess it up.
Yeah, it's a fun experience. You know, it's totally different. It pushed me outside my comfort zone, but I'm like that too, like how you are. Like there's a lot of things that I just tweak over time and I change over time. And then I realize over time, like, oh, actually maybe that wall should be like this. And, you know, so like to force myself to have to make big decisions all at once, it was hard. And there's certain things that now, you know, we're making changes to, or I'm like, oh man, I wish we did it like that, you know, but it's all a learning experience, really.
It is. And there's only so many things that are truly permanent. You can do things a little bit differently.
Right, exactly.
So I guess I should fill everybody in on the message I got. Actually, no, I could just put that in the intro. I'll just put that in the intro.
Sure.
Basically, this person is saying that I had on somebody who lived in a Victorian home. I had somebody who lives in like a early 1900s cottage. And this person was a little bit discouraged. Like, okay, I live in a little 1999 home and we're painting the walls, the doors, the trim, and some minor things. But so basically, like, I don't have a huge budget. I don't have a house with character. Is there anything I can do to make my space feel comfortable and collected and character, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I thought that was a good idea to talk about because I'm like, I haven't had anybody on like that.
Right. And both your home, your current home and your last home were both historic homes, which, you know, so I mean, both your homes are beautiful. Like your last home,
you just
your new home.
have like, it's not as much of a challenge because the house is already has character, you know?
Yeah. Well, I love this topic because I love old homes, and I have begged my husband for the last few years to buy an old home. I would have preferred that rather than our new home, because I just, same thing, love the character. It's just stuff you just can't find in newer homes. And so for me, having that passion for old homes, I wanted to be able to incorporate that into both our houses. So our last house, like I said, was a 1985 cookie cutter home, very boxy. I mean, basically when we moved into that house, it just reeked 80s, like pink carpet, wallpaper, just like that very yellowy oak flooring and white, you know, tiles that were probably from like the builder, you know, in the 80s, like, you know, so everything was very 80s when we first moved in. And for us, it was just about learning my style, one, but also just incorporating things that felt like it had character. I would say the number one thing, you know, is to start with paint for sure. So paint makes all the difference. And, you know, starting with that, with your walls, with your trim, with your cabinets, is probably the first place that we started. I remember like nights where we were up to like 4 a.m. painting because we had our kids were little at the time. And this was my husband was working during the day. And so in the middle of the night, we would be painting because it was, well, I'm very impulsive and I wanted everything done like really quickly too.
Yeah.
But it was like our best time. We were like, okay, it was kind of like fun, you know, we put our music on and we would just paint while the kids were sleeping, and it was fun. And so I would say definitely start with paint, you know.
Do you have any tips for that? Like, I feel like I have, in both of my houses, the first go round chosen the wrong color. And then I have to paint again. And actually, I did that in my last house. I painted every room got painted 3 times in the 10 years we lived there. Every single room. Like 3 times.
Is it because you changed your mind, or is it because you didn't like the color?
Yeah, like it didn't look right. Okay. I'd say one time it was because I changed my mind. And then another time it was because like the color I went to after the mind change, I didn't like again. Like it didn't work. It just wasn't right. And then in this house, we had it all painted because it was all kinds of like mismatch, and trim was painted all different colors. And so I was just like, let's just start fresh. I'm going to do all neutral, so I never have to paint again. And then what I found after living here for about 1.5 years is that certain rooms are so big, because this is like a Victorian house, they need a color. And so by choosing a neutral, I was thinking, okay, I'll never paint again. And now I'm already like going to paint again.
Yeah.
So,
well, you know, I think the thing is especially when you're first moving into a house, you know, and if the previous owner has colors in there that you don't like, you know, it's not a bad idea to paint everything neutral and then work your way throughout the house, you know?
Okay, that makes sense. That makes me feel better too.
Yeah, because I think that as long as everything's neutral, and if you need to live with it, you know, because not everybody is, you know, sharing blog posts. Like, I feel like that kind of kicks us in the butt to get things done a little bit, because we do this for a living, you know, so not everybody's going to have a schedule like that. So if it takes you 3 years to get to that room, at least everything's neutral. And if you have the budget to maybe hire a painter to come in and just do one color, you know, it's not a terrible idea. We did that with this current house because, I mean, obviously it was, you know, new construction and a renovation. And so everything needed to be painted because it was
the whole place.
Yeah. But we ended up, what I did was I picked just a nice neutral white. We just had a painter come in and spray everything. So it was a little bit cheaper, and it gave me time to not have to pull the trigger on all those rooms, because I wasn't sure exactly how the rooms were going to come together. You know, I just knew, you know, the certain things like our flooring and our cabinets and things like that, but I didn't know how I was going to decorate my bedroom yet, you know? So we ended up just having him come in and just spray everything with one color, which we chose White Dove by Benjamin Moore. And it's a nice warm white.
Half of my house is actually that.
Oh, okay.
Right now.
Yeah. It's great. You know, it's a great white for, especially if you want a little like character, you know, because it's not too stark. It feels like kind of like comfortable and cozy still.
Yes. And I love it in some of my rooms. In some of my rooms, it is like the best, but then in other rooms, because the way the light comes in, it is not right. And that matters. And I want to think it doesn't. Like, I want to think, oh, come on, how could that possibly matter? And after living here, it does.
I'm wondering which rooms it does. You don't like it in. Like, I don't love it in my rooms that have south-facing windows.
Okay. I definitely love it more on the north. Yes. Okay. So my house, every room that's on the north, I love it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
That's funny. It's really funny. And really, if you really were particular and wanted to do samples all throughout your house, because it's true, the way your windows face change the way the color reads. And I will say my east facing and my north facing, and I think my west facing windows are good. Anything that had that south, I ended up changing. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
I just feel like that seems like, splitting hairs, like it wouldn't matter, but it truly does. Yeah. Like, I was asking a friend before I painted some of these rooms, some of her suggestions, and she was like, well, which way is the house face? I'm like, oh, come on. How could that matter?
It's true. It's true. It's a learning process for sure. If painting a room is going to take a lot of time for you, it's not something you have a lot of time for, I would suggest getting samples, testing it out on each wall, making sure you really like it. Like me, I'm so impulsive. I pick a color and I'm like, yeah, I think I like it. And I paint it. And then I'm like, if I don't like it, I'll paint it again in 6 months, because I'm crazy and I do things like that. But not everybody wants
me too.
to. So yeah.
Oh man, I too am crazy. So paint is your first recommendation. Yeah. Like, you know, if you have these old cabinets, for example, it does make such a difference. I know it's something people do a lot of, but it makes a big difference. And also, if they're cheap, ugly cabinets, you could even get away with trying like something a little bit more bold than just white.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You know, I would even suggest, you know, it really depends on how practical you are, because I'm not the most practical of people. I don't make most practical decisions. But if you wanted to, like if you took out all your top cabinets and you wanted to have open shelving, like doing a bold color on a bottom base cabinet is a great idea, because it won't make the room feel too dark. Like, especially if you have an older home, like maybe the 80s or 90s, they didn't always make open concept kitchens, you know, or they didn't have those cute little, you know, galley kitchens from like the 1940s, you know. So you might have a really boxy kitchen that you might not like. Like that was like our kitchen in our last house. So we ended up doing all white cabinets. And then in the one cabinet, I ended up making those doors glass. So it felt like it made it brighter. But if you wanted to do a pop of color or like black cabinets or something like that, then maybe I would suggest taking out your upper cabinets and just doing all lowers. And I think it would look really amazing.
Oh yeah, that would look good. And also, it's really, the process isn't that big of a deal. Like in our last house, we painted our cabinets twice.
Mm-hmm.
Because the first time I chose like this yellowy off-white because I just wasn't thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted a bright white. And yes, it was a process, but it also was a weekend. So like if you want to go green or something,
Right.
like some of those really cool historic looking greens,
For sure.
you can just go white next year. It's not a big deal. I'm actually already thinking about changing my white cabinets to something else.
Oh, that's fun.
Like it's just paint, you know?
Absolutely. Definitely. Yeah. And picking colors, like I know, like I think Benjamin Moore has like a historical line of paint colors, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yes. One of them does. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So that's like a good idea too, to look through something like that feels like a color that might have been around, you know, back in the 20s, or, you know, whatever style you're trying to go for. So picking a color that doesn't feel like the 80s, I feel like it feels more historical.
Right. I mean, everybody knows that's the cheapest and really quickest update.
Yes.
You can completely transform your house with paint. And that is what we did with our last house too, because it was an old home, but it wasn't pretty when we walked through it. And then just a whole bunch of paint. I used to have this goal for like, I think it was an entire year, that I was going to paint 1 hour a day, because when I moved in, I painted all the trim that same yellowy off-white.
Okay.
And then after about a year, I was just like, why did I do that? And I just kept like lamenting the fact that I did that.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh wait, I can change this. I'm just going to, for a year, paint an hour a day, and all the trim, all the doors, all the cabinets, everything in this house will be white then. And so that's what I did. I'm like, it's just an hour. It doesn't even like affect your life that much. But in 1 year, every single window, crown molding, baseboard, I painted it all the white.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Well, that's a good, that was a great strategy to do it, you know, an hour a day. I mean, that's really smart.
it's the only way
That's a
to
lot.
not make it overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I'm like, I hate this, but I can totally change it. And the way I can do this is just with 1 hour a day.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Do you remember any other big things that you did in your last house that you felt like made it not a cookie cutter home?
Yeah. So for our last house, we really couldn't like take down walls. So we were on a slab. And so anything like to take a wall down, like we would have to like jackhammer the floor. So really, our last house was a really good example of just adding to the house or covering to the house. So we didn't change anything about the structure. So a few things that we did though to kind of give it character was like adding certain molding, you know, shiplap or board and batten. We did a lot of that in our last house just to give it some character, because there isn't really any character in a 1980s home. So by adding like those types of elements, it just gave it something. Another thing I remember that I did was we had a brick fireplace in our last house, but it wasn't like a really cute brick fireplace. You know, it was very red. So the first thing I did was I ended up doing a wash on it. I did like a whitewash to the brick.
Okay.
And it was good. And I left it like that for a few years. And we ended up building a mantle too that kind of had character, like dental molding and stuff like that. And then what I ended up doing, this was probably, I want to say maybe not even a year before we moved out, I finally figured out a plan how to make my brick look more like aged brick. And I ended up taking like plaster of Paris. And so you probably do this with like any type of plaster or like mortar or anything like that, and ended up filling in all the grooves to the brick. It almost reminded me of like teeth, the way the brick looked, if that makes any sense. It just
Okay.
needed kind of that like aged feel. And so we filled in all the brick with that, and it like totally changed the vibe of that space. So things
Do you
like
have
that.
a blog post on that?
Yeah,
on
I
that
do.
brick?
Yeah,
I thought you did. I thought I'd seen that.
Yeah, I could send it to you.
Yeah, I'll link it down in the show notes. And then also, do you have any board and batten blog posts
I
as
do.
well?
Yep. I have actually, I think I have 2 blog posts. We had done it in our bedroom and we did it in our living room. And a great way is if you don't want to do it to an entire space, whether, to save money or maybe an entire room wouldn't be good for that. We ended up doing them as accent walls. So it was just a nice way to add a little character, but not spend too much money.
Because that's actually pretty cheap, right? I mean,
It is.
I wouldn't think that's one of those things that it seems like it would be a lot, but then whenever you break down the materials, it's really not only not that expensive, but also not difficult.
Right. Oh yeah,
because
absolutely.
It's just like straight cuts, I would assume. I've never done it actually.
Yeah, no, it's really easy. Depending on your molding, like if you already have existing molding, you need to maybe do a thinner board, or if you wanted to do new baseboard molding, which we ended up doing that in the last house, doing like a chunky, I guess it was like a 1x4, then you can match it. So there's like all different ways that you can do that. Another like tip too, like depending on your style and depending on any type of molding is instantly going to change your home. But in this house, we did picture frame molding. So that also gives like kind of a little bit more of a traditional feel versus like a farmhouse or like a coastal feel. So we ended up doing picture frame molding. And seriously, that's probably the cheapest and easiest thing anyone can do to their walls.
Did you like build them, or did you literally take, because I know that some people actually take picture frames, right? Like you could buy a large picture frame and how did you guys do
that?
it?
Yeah, we ended up building them. So we just got like the molding from Lowe's, and it's just like a little detail to it. I didn't want anything too ornate because I really still like things very clean and simple. And you basically just build a box, and you can make whatever design you want on your wall. So we ended up doing the entryway wall in this house. We ended up just doing it on the lower half. And then in our dining room, we have it like going all the way up the wall. So there's like, you could kind of just mess around with it however you want it and kind of sketch it out and then just go for it. As long as you have a nail gun, it's so easy.
Okay. Yeah. That is surprisingly easy. We didn't do it, but in our last house, my cousin did it for us. And I'm like, he built them, but it looks literally like he's putting picture frames up.
Right.
But then once you paint it, it all just looks good.
Yeah, it really does.
And definitely adds some dimension and character.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that happens where sometimes you walk into a house and just because it doesn't have something,
mm-hmm.
you forget that you could add it with just a little bit of time and not that much money.
Definitely. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
then there you have it.
Absolutely.
So another thing this person was saying is that she feels like she doesn't have any furniture.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I have a dark brown couch, 2 office chairs, pretty much no other furniture. My husband wants to build all the furniture, but that takes time. So what have you or whomever you interview done when you feel like you have nothing to work with and nowhere to put things? I still want my home to be pretty, but in your opinion, is it just a lost cause right now?
So she wants to know where to put her existing furniture. Is that the question?
I guess the question is she feels like she has nothing to work with.
Okay.
And I think probably segueing here into tips for buying things like thrift,
mm-hmm.
because I think people think you have to have
brand new
everything. A lot of money to make your house look decent.
Yeah, absolutely not. I feel like most of my furniture, like I could go around my entire house, this one and our last house, and I could say, yeah, I bought that for $5. Yeah, I found that on the curb. Yeah, I got that at the flea market. It could be really hard for somebody who might not always have an eye for it, but I say like always find potential in just about anything. So if you really don't like something, you can paint it to at least match for now. A lot of stuff I find is like either in flea markets or I love Facebook Marketplace. Like that's like one of my favorite places to find furniture or even decorative pieces. It's just a great way to kind of, especially now being home, we're not shopping right now. And I have been on Marketplace, and sometimes I'm not even looking for something in particular. I'll just like browse and see if something catches my eye, if it feels like my style. Yeah.
I get in trouble on Facebook Marketplace.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's probably one of the best places to look because it's always there. You know what I mean? You don't have to wait for the flea market to open or, and it's just a great way to, at nighttime, you have 20 minutes before bed, you want to just scroll through Marketplace and see what's
I do
going
it all the
on.
time. The problem is always going and getting the stuff.
Yeah.
Because for me, I don't live in the city. I live about an hour out. And so a
Right.
lot of times it'll be in St. Louis. And I'm like, how bad do I want this thing?
Right.
It's something that if I was at the antique shop, I would have definitely grabbed it.
Right.
But when you have to go an hour to get it, but it is,
Yeah.
you can find so much good stuff. So I guess to this person, don't give up just because you don't have it yet, because you easily could have it.
Right. And then,
without spending a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what you currently have, if you need to use it for now, you can always make changes to something. In our last house, I remember we had a lot of our apartment furniture and my taste had changed. And, we had to slowly decorate that house. At least now with this home, I got to use what I had in my previous home. Then we really had nothing. We went from, an apartment with just a few pieces of furniture to having a house, and certain things, because I couldn't replace them right away, I would just paint them. So I was like, all right, well, I was really into the, all gray at that point. And so I took all of my black furniture and painted it gray. And then, slowly I would replace things and change things. But it's a great way that it just to be able to use it for now while you're still decorating your home and furnishing it.
Now, did you use a lot of chalk paint or milk paint? What was your favorite?
Yeah, so I used a lot of chalk paint, especially in that house. Now I sometimes I just use like what I have left over from the walls. Like, I'm like, oh, I have leftover paint. Actually, I'm really loving Fusion mineral paint right now. It's like,
okay, I've never used that before.
It's really, really good. And it's not as like chalky. So it's just, I don't know, it's got a really nice smooth finish. It's kind of like my new favorite.
Okay, I need to look into that for sure. Because there's always things that you want to change because they just don't have the right color for your room. And, if you're buying stuff off Facebook Marketplace or flea markets or whatever, it's not an expensive piece that you're really worried about ruining.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's enjoyable too to paint furniture. It's a nice like little pastime to make over a piece, and it gives you just, I just think it gives you something too, like to see that, hey, I just did that. It's very fulfilling.
Yeah, it's a quick fix.
Yeah.
I remember in our last house, Luke came to marriage with like a whole bunch of furniture. He had it in his parents' basement, and he had these big chunky wood things. I don't even know like how to describe them. They're like all wood, extremely heavy. He had a couch and 2 chairs, and then there was cushions on them.
Okay.
And this is at the time whenever I wouldn't have spent like it would have been a lot for me to spend $80 on a sofa or something.
Right.
Because I ended up actually spending $80 on a sofa and love seat from Craigslist that I slip covered. And I remember that it was $80. So that's how much it affected me. Like I knew it was $80 and it was a big deal.
Right.
And I took those weird wooden things and I took all the cushions off and I covered them. I sewed some white fabric covers and added some pillows. And although they were definitely not what I would choose, they were free and they were good enough. And so you can always redo what you have to make it more beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And just like let things take time. Another good tip too is just to work on one room at a time, so maybe a room that you're in all the time, your living room, that could be a great room to start with. So to start finding a coffee table on Facebook Marketplace and use your existing couch and, and get a new bookcase from the flea market, like I would start with one room at a time, unless you find a like really great piece that you cannot pass up, like go for it.
So is that what you do? Because I've been trying to feel out different people who I feel like are really good at this, and everybody does it differently. So, okay, when you go to the antique or thrift shop, if you see something and you love it, do you think, okay, this will go exactly here? Or do you buy it and then just assume you'll find a place for it?
Right. Well, I feel like I do both. I'm creating this course for my followers and just how to decorate. And I feel like to teach somebody, the best tip is really to tell them to start with one room at a time. People get overwhelmed. I always feel like I'm a little different because I do this for a living. I'm a little crazy. And, so I feel like the practical idea is to start with one room. But if you feel like you find something that you cannot pass up, it's the right price, it's just calling your name, then go for it, get it, and there's things that I buy sometimes, like if it's like, all right, that was $5. I don't know if I have a spot for it, but like, I can't pass that up, and I'll buy it. And worst case scenario, if I can't find a place for it, I'll just resell it. I'll either have a yard sale or I'll sell it on, marketplace. I think if you cannot pass something up and it feels like you, if it's calling you, buy it. But probably the practical idea is to start with one room.
I agree on the one room thing because I walk through antique shops and I can walk through the same one weeks apart. But if I'm thinking about a different room, I'm seeing it in a whole new light. So like, for example, right now I'm in the market for a antique fireplace surround with a summer cover because I'm going to make a mantle area in my living room, and it's going to be like a faux fireplace, but it's going to look like there's a fireplace behind it, but really it's just a summer cover.
Okay, nice.
And I've never noticed those before in my life, and I called to a bunch of different antique shops like, oh yeah, we have a few. And I'm like, I've never seen those in my life, but now that I'm in the market for it, I would see it. And then another thing is I'm wanting to redo my girls' room, and see, this is me getting ahead of myself because I really only want to do one room at a time.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I'm thinking about that too, which is wrong. But I want some trunks to go at the end of their bed. And if I would have gone to an antique shop like last week, I would have walked by every single trunk and not even thought twice. And now I need a trunk.
Right.
I need 2 trunks. And so I feel like if you are thinking about one room and all the little details of that room, you'll see what you are looking for versus like just, oh, I'll just look around and see what catches my eye.
Right.
I don't feel like a fireplace cover thing would have ever caught my eye ever. But it would now. I'll pay almost anything for it. Like I'm looking for it. I need it. But I totally agree with your one room at a time thing, because maybe unless you have like a better eye for it, because the person I was talking to the other day, my friend Sarah from Briarton Farm, do you know Sarah Joe? I feel like she has a better eye for things than me. So she's like, oh, I just buy whatever catches my eye. And I'm like, that wouldn't have caught my eye. Like, unless I was specifically thinking about a purpose for it.
Right.
I was going to walk right by that wicker trunk that I now want.
Yeah, no, I think that's just so smart, and it makes so much sense. It's funny too. It's almost like something that maybe you'll see a car you've never seen before, and you're like, oh, that's a cute car. I've never seen that model before. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you see them all the time, so it's
like when you buy one.
Yeah. Like, it's just, sometimes it's just like the idea, because you're on the hunt for that. So now you're always, you're going to see it more. And I also think too, if you're paying attention to one room at a time, especially if you struggle a little bit with decorating, you're going to be able to map it out better. You're going to be really focused on that room rather than feeling so sporadic, like, oh, but I have to do this and I have to do this and I have to do this. And then you might not feel like it ever comes together fully. So if you're really focused on that room, and also if you're budget conscious too, it's going to help you plan for one room at a time. But also, if you find something you cannot pass up and it's the right price, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. But I totally agree with you that whenever I don't focus on something like one room fully, it never comes together.
Yes.
And I've had that happen with like the only rooms in my house that I've focused on so far, like in my new house, which we've only been here a year and a half, so that's why, are my kitchen and my bedroom. All the other ones, like I've bought things here and there, I've thrown them in there, but it never was like, okay, this is a project. Like my bedroom, it was because I had a collaboration. So of course, like I put all my focus into it to make it look good for the collaboration.
Right.
And then my kitchen, because it's my kitchen, I thought a lot about it because I make recipe videos, and it was like something I gave tons of attention to. And as of right now, those are the only 2 rooms in my house that I feel like have captured my style.
Right.
And that I love how they look. I feel like all I have to do now is just swap out like flowers or curtains or pillows, and the base of the room I love.
Right.
Every other room in my house, no, not at all. Like my kids' rooms, they're fine. My living room, like it's all fine, but like they don't have that vibe like my kitchen and my bedroom.
Right.
And it is 100% because, like you said, I've never put my full focus on it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I struggle with that too. If I just feel like I'm just pulling something together, I'll always feel like it doesn't feel complete. Like if I do like a mood board for something and I'm really planning out what I want for that space, I will watch it come together better than if I'm just kind of like, oh, I kind of like this, or oh, and I kind of like this, and I'll make it work. You know, it's always better when you have a full plan for it.
It is. I think you're right. And some people maybe would operate a little bit differently. And so there's that. But like, I think for the majority of people, that one singular focus thing helps with so many areas of life.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about art because you seem to be really great at incorporating art. And that's something that in my last house, I didn't have much room for art because we had built-ins and it was with the craftsman style, it was a lot of like not open concept, but kind of. And so there weren't walls like that were just blank and needing art. And then in this house, totally need art everywhere. And I really don't know what I'm doing. And I bought a few things I feel like just aren't right. And then a couple things I feel like I nailed it, but I really still don't know how or what. Right. I'm struggling through it all.
Yeah. Art is so fun. I really have grown to really love artwork, and I can't say I know what I'm doing. I can't say like I look at a picture and I'm like, oh, that's this style. Like I have
But it looks so good in your house. Like you definitely are getting the art to look really great.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's really enjoyable. I feel like vintage art is very on trend right now. And growing up, my parents like never decorated with like pictures in the house. Like it was like, you know, they would have maybe a picture like on an end table or something like that. But my great uncle was an artist. And so they always decorated our walls with artwork and like original oil paintings. And so I guess it's kind of like drilled into my head, like having artwork in the house versus having photos and stuff was just acceptable. And it was just something how I grew up. And so in our last house, I did more photos and black and white pictures. And in this house, I didn't want to do that. And so I started just really loving artwork. And honestly, like if I showed you a tour of my house and went from one picture to the next, I mean, I haven't spent really that much on artwork. I really try to find things that are affordable. I mean, flea markets are just like my favorite place to shop for basically everything. So artwork is definitely something that I've come to find. But I will say like a really good tip when you are decorating with art is try to keep with like colors that are in the room. And, you know, if you're creating a gallery wall, I would go for similar colors that are in each of those pictures. You know, if you like a lot of neutrals, you know, make sure everything has neutrals. If you have, I don't know, blues, you know, maybe have everything that has a touch of blue in it in each of the pictures. You want the colors to coordinate. I've really been loving like moody artwork lately. And so anything with like kind of a black background, I love that. And then another really good tip too is if you cannot find affordable artwork because it is on trend, obviously a lot of the originals are very expensive right now. I would like suggest like, you know, you can do vintage prints. And so I actually just have a curated line that I released about a month ago and it's on my website. And I have all these vintage prints that they look like the real thing. And it's a great way, especially if you're not fully committed to it, that you can add prints versus real, you know,
I did not know this.
Yeah.
So you can like go on and then print them off, or do you order the prints? Like, do you print them?
My curated line is with Shop Vintage Supply, and she offers two options. Like every website's different, but for her, she offers two options. She has a print company that she can print them through. So it's a little bit more expensive if you have them printed, but I think they're on average around like $29. Or you could download them and then print them at Walmart or at Costco or something like that. And those are around $15. And I will say they're both great options, especially if maybe you wanted to put it on a canvas or you want to print it multiple times. It's a good option to download it. But I will tell you, her prints are so sharp. Like when I received my prints for my home, I was so impressed with the quality. It like you could even see like kind of the rippling of like what the original print probably looks like. And it looks like it's really rippled in like real life. It's just so good.
Okay, so which of these, I'm looking at your Instagram, which of these are from your print line?
So I just got a few more that haven't been up yet. So I have some of the portraits. So the French lady, which is on a canvas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then
I love those French ladies.
Yeah.
It's like, I never would have thought to do that, but then I've been seeing it in people's homes and I love it.
Yeah, I love portraits right now. I know some people find it very creepy, and I totally get that. Like
It is a little bit weird, but I like it.
Yeah, and I just totally jumped on that trend, and I love it. Like I know my parents came over one time, they're like, "So what's up with all the women?" And like,
yep, it's definitely like weird.
Yeah,
but it looks so good. Like also, I saw Liz Marie put it on her frame TV.
Yes,
I'm sold. I want a frame TV, and I don't know if I'm going to do it because they're like, I probably won't. They're insane.
Yes.
Like I want to find a different way to cover my TV with art than that. But
there's a few
these
tutorials.
ladies, I love them.
Yeah, there's a few tutorials out there how you could do it yourself, but I have a frame TV also, and we actually.
Oh, do you? Oh my gosh!
And we offer a few different prints in the line too that you can do.
Oh my goodness, you're selling me more.
Yes,
Deb.
and honestly, like you know what's the best thing? It's the funny thing is the only reason I got the frame television was because we really had no other place for our TV. We don't have a formal living room. We only have an open concept like kitchen family room. And it was really the only spot our TV could go was above the fireplace. And so I said to my husband, if we really are going to put the TV there, I really want one of those frame televisions. And we had our last TV for like, I want to say almost 10 years. So it's like we really used it. It wasn't like we're people that buy new TVs every 2 years or something. Of course, it was a little debate because it's expensive and you could get just good quality television for half the price. But
you could probably get like a full wall TV for what these things cost.
For real. They're really expensive. But I will tell you, like I have said this to my followers too, I actually am more grateful that we have that television than if I put like real artwork or a mirror above my mantle because I can change it every day.
I was just looking at your, actually before we got on the topic of the frame TV, I was looking at your Instagram and I was like, oh, she swapped out the art above her fireplace in one post. I guess maybe she's trying to show us her line or something.
Yeah, exactly. So I love it.
I can't believe that's the TV.
People don't know in person either. People will come over and like if it's their first time coming over and then all of a sudden we go to turn the television on, they're like, whoa,
that thing just turned into TV. Oh man,
it's
that
fun.
Is really cool.
It's a good conversational piece, that's for sure. So
okay, well I'll have to talk to you more about that one because that's something I was thinking about. But that's a way to add character, not on a budget at all.
Yeah, but not the TV part, right?
But another thing I was looking at, you built the kitchen, right? Like that's the add-on, I would say.
Yeah, that's the addition. Yeah.
Okay, something you did there, and this again is not more of the budget thing, but like adding character to a new house is. You really thought about a lot of the details, such as the windows. See, that's something in my house I didn't think about whenever we added a window to our kitchen. We just filled up the hole with a window. And now I'm like, oh, wait, this is what adds the character. Like these little things. Like you chose windows that have a historic vibe to them.
Yeah. You know, we did a few things when doing the construction that I wanted to make sure added that like character. You know, I kind of consider my style like European farmhouse. So it's got this casualness of farmhouse, but I liked a little bit of like those European old world elements. And so doing diamond windows, the window grids, and they're literally just snap-in grids. I don't know. I get this question all the time and I really don't know the answer to it. If you can get the grids on their own, because we did order them with the windows, but they are snap-ins. So
it looks like something you could build if you were a little bit handy.
Oh, I'm sure you can. I'm sure it would be a little tedious to do a full diamond, but you can definitely do grids, or you could even just add, you know, actually my neighbor, she has a new build home and she does a lot of character in her home. She's making her own window grids, like just out of molding. So you can totally add that, you know, if diamonds are not your thing, you could just do, you know, a 4-light or something like that. But we love the diamond grids. It was just something that I always loved diamond windows. And I was like, when we had the opportunity to, you know, pick our own windows, I chose them for both our kitchen and then our laundry room also has diamond grids.
It's really cool. I love your laundry room. I think that these are just all those little details that really make the difference. But if you're not a keen observer, you might not even notice why you think a house has a certain vibe to it.
Right.
I know me personally, this is all very fascinating and new to me. And that's just obviously since I didn't choose the right windows in my house, it's not something I would have thought of. But it's like hardware, the grids on the windows,
Right.
Little things like that, the moldings, adding the picture frame molding that you're talking about, all that kind of stuff.
Right. All the details. And like, if you're looking for something like adding character, whether, you know, even if you're getting a new kitchen in your house, you know, you might have lived in your home for 30 years and now you're finally renovating your kitchen and you want it to have an old world feel. You know, just choosing finishes, like we chose finishes because I really wanted it to feel, you know, it's a new kitchen, new cabinets, but I wanted those old world elements. So we chose like Carrara marble because that's old world. It's always been around. We did brass fixtures, which just felt more aged to me. We did like an unlacquered finish, so it kind of like could patina. You know, so all those kind of things, you know, I mean, even just subway tile, which is probably the most affordable option for backsplash, it's always been around, you know, so picking things that feel from a certain time period or anything like that is just so key to adding a little bit of character that anybody desires, whether it's to a new home, a cookie cutter home,
A 90s,
yeah,
80s.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you added copper. You have like a lot of copper hanging pots. And I know I've seen those at antique shops super cheap. You could find those.
Goodness. You could find them for so cheap. I think I got a pair that I have hanging in our pantry for $5. Like I mean the nicest copper pair for $5. So
wow.
You know, or you can even check Etsy. Etsy has you might spend a little bit more money, especially a lot of them do come from like France or I mean Etsy has a ton of copper.
Yeah, like if you're in a hurry to add character to a 90s house and you know you have a higher budget, you can pick up vintage rugs, you can pick up copper.
Yes.
You can buy original artwork, but then if you're trying to do it more on a budget, go antique shopping a lot, look for the copper, look for the rugs, and then print artwork off website.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Always have your eyes
the
peeled. You never know when something might come out, you know, might come up. Like, you know, if you're looking for copper and every time you go thrifting, like always like be on the hunt for it and keep it in the back of your mind because you'll find it one day.
I love some of the ways that you do galleries. I was looking at your daughter's room. You have the hat wall. I love that. And that's such a cheap thing. Like you could probably go find those hats at Target.
I got them from Target's dollar spot, all those hats.
Really?
I did.
The dollar spot? See, now I want to do this.
Yeah. I think they were like the $3 hats. Like they weren't the dollar ones, you know, but still they were.
Right. But still you have, that's like $15.
Yeah.
And that looks so cute.
Yeah. It was a really fun way. It was like one of those like design ideas that I was, you know, up at 2:00 in the morning and like thinking about her room and it like hit me. And what we did was because it had like, they were like, I think they were around Easter time. We did her room last spring. And so they had all like, you know, pinks and blue ribbon or whatever. So I just swapped out the ribbon and bought black ribbon from Michael's and wrapped them all with black ribbon. So they all matched and kind of, you know, coordinated with, she's kind of got like a black and white theme going on.
Yep. I love her little bed that I'm assuming you painted her bed.
Yeah, I painted her bed. It was a newer bed that we had got her in her last house. And actually, I think I got it on like major clearance. I forget which site it was from. But I wanted to do it a little bit more dramatic. So we painted that black. And I think I used chalk paint on that one.
That's really cute.
Yeah. So, but her room was super budget friendly. Like, I mean, she had this nightstand I got from Facebook Marketplace and painted it. You know, we got the hats and then I didn't even paint the walls in her room. Like they were just from when we moved in that they were already painted. And it was like the simple, easy makeover with just a few tweaks and it totally came together.
Yeah, just a lot of paint and going on Facebook Marketplace.
Yes, exactly. I mean, literally that's the key. That's like the key to all my decorating, you know?
It is, but I mean, sometimes it needs to be said a lot because we forget the simple things that really do work.
Yeah, that's a fun way that you can add something to your walls. I know that's one of the questions I get a lot. Just, you know, what do I put on my walls? You know, people struggle with that. And sometimes
I struggle with that.
Yeah, me too. Sometimes like you run out of, like I'm actually sitting in my bedroom right now and I have this one wall that I still have not completely finished because I've run out of ideas. I'm like, I already have all my artwork. I have wallpaper. I have 3 mirrors already in here. I'm like, you know, like you sometimes run out of ideas. So just thinking outside of the box by either putting baskets or hats or, you know, something unexpected on the wall could be a lot of fun.
I like when people group together any collection, like your hats. I've seen people group together little hand mirrors. I've seen them do like a collection of cutting boards
Yes.
or plates. Anytime you take a collection and you put it together in a spot, it then looks good. Like even if it just looked on its own, like not a big deal.
Honestly, I think that that's probably the best like cheating advice for anybody who's like doesn't know how to decorate too. Like if you're doing like a shelf and you're like, I don't know how to like create vignettes and do all these things. Like if you just tell them to create a collection of pictures or something like that, instant, like it's like the easy, I'm cheating at this, like boom, instant.
Like in your office, I see you have spools. Okay, that's an example.
Yeah.
Like just a random spool would look so dumb, but there's a bunch of them and it looks good.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got those like major clearance. I thought they were like the coolest thing. And so, yeah, collections is like definitely an easy way, whether to decorate your walls or your shelves or anything like that. And it's fun too, because then you can even start a collection of something, you know, if you collect copper, if you collect Crocs or something like that. So it's a great way to start a little fun vintage collection.
Yeah, super easy. I think one of the biggest things that I feel like I figured out in the last year or couple years, or since I've started doing a lot with my house, is just to play around with it. I feel like we take our houses sometimes way too seriously. You know, like it's just this thing you can't touch or you can't mess with. And I see some bloggers who take that to a extreme, like in a good way, like painting rainbows on their walls. And I'm like, I would never think to just do whatever I want with this place. This is my house. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not renting. I can do whatever I want.
So true. And if it's a cheap and easy like fix, like you don't love it and you want to change it in a year, like why not? And paint is for sure one of the cheapest ways to change things.
Definitely. All right. Awesome. I feel like we covered so many great things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell everybody more about your products and where we can find you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. So, so my blog is seekinglavenderlane.com and I'm over on Instagram at Seeking Lavender Lane. And I've been blogging for 7 years now. And, you know, I've learned a lot over the years and not perfect. I've changed my style here and there. You know, I started a little bit more farmhouse, and our current house, I feel a little bit more like I found my style. And so from that, I, you know, created a group where it's called Home Healing. It's on Facebook. It's a free group where I just help women create. And I have a weekly post where I share a new idea to do that week. And we do monthly giveaways in there. I'm currently in the process of creating a course and a group for really diving deep into teaching people all about decorating 101. So that should be out probably by the end of the summer. And I have a candle line. It's called Fleur and Flame, and it's a subscription. So every month it's $29, includes shipping, and as long as you live in the US, and it's a new candle every month. And then, as I mentioned, we have our vintage prints line, which is a curated collection through Shop Vintage Supply. So she has a ton of prints available on there. And we did a whole European print line, which has about, I think that there's 11 prints right now in
How
there.
cool. Yeah. I'm definitely going to be checking that out.
Yeah, that was really fun. I just really enjoyed it. And she was really great to partner with because she's newer in this and she's a graphic designer. So she knows all there is to really getting those prints like pure quality. So everything is just crisp and there's no blur or anything like that. It's just really great. So that's me. That's pretty much everything I'm doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much for coming on here with me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully I was able to, you know, help somebody and answer as many questions as I can and just my own experience.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast. Make sure to go check out my friend Deb over at seekinglavenderlane.com and on Instagram at Seeking Lavender Lane. I know you will be very inspired. I will see you in the next episode of the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast.